Ever wondered how we learn most effectively? Picture this. You're studying for an exam. You've got your textbooks, your highlighters, and a mountain of notes. But despite hours of reading and rereading, the information just doesn't seem to stick. You're not alone. Many of us have been in this exact situation, scratching our heads, wondering if there's a better way to absorb knowledge. Well, the good news is, there is. There's a scientifically backed concept that can help us understand this better, a concept that provides a roadmap to more effective learning. It's not about studying harder, but studying smarter. The key lies in understanding how we learn, not just what we learn. This concept was brought to life by an American psychiatrist named William Glasser. He dedicated his life to exploring the inner workings of our minds, particularly focusing on how we learn. His work led to the development of what is now known as the theory of choice, and most importantly for our discussion today, the learning pyramid. Glasser's learning pyramid is a fascinating model that breaks down the different methods we use for studying and learning. From books and lectures to observation and group discussions, Glasser analyzed and classified these methods based on their effectiveness and our ability to assimilate the content. He proposed a method to optimize learning for students from various platforms, outlining how we learn. According to Glasser, we learn 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% by observing, and 50% when we observe and listen simultaneously. But it doesn't stop there. When we discuss the subject with others, our learning shoots up to 70%. When we put it into practice, it jumps to 80%. And the cream of the crop? Teaching. When we teach the knowledge to others, we retain a whopping 95% of it. This concept, my friends, is none other than the learning pyramid. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the birth of the learning pyramid, its structure, its implications, and how to put it into practice. Let's embark on this quest for knowledge together. The learning pyramid, a concept that has shaped our understanding of learning, was created by an American psychiatrist named William Glasser. Delving into the origins of the learning pyramid, we find ourselves exploring the life and work of William Glasser. Glasser, a renowned psychiatrist, was not just a man of medicine, but also a profound thinker and a revolutionary educator. His work extended beyond the clinical setting, forging new paths in the realm of learning and education. One of his most significant contributions is the theory of choice, a psychological model that suggests we have more control over our behavior than we might think. Glasser believed that our actions are chosen based on what we believe will satisfy our needs. This theory underpins the learning pyramid, emphasizing the role of individual motivation in learning. Glasser's belief was that the most effective forms of learning come from within individuals, originating from their motivation. He theorized that learning is a process that starts from the individual and progresses to the collective, not the other way around. This perspective significantly influenced the creation of the learning pyramid. In his exploration of learning methods, Glasser analyzed the tools we often use, such as books, lectures, observation, and group discussions. He classified each of these methods based on their effectiveness and content assimilation capabilities. This classification led to the creation of the learning pyramid, a model that offers an insightful look into how we learn. This pyramid does not just rank the methods of learning, it serves as a guide to optimize learning for students from various platforms. It provides a clear picture of how different learning methods contribute to our understanding and retention of information. According to Glasser, we learn 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% when observing, and 50% when we observe and listen simultaneously. At the base of the pyramid, we learn 70% when we discuss the subject with others, 80% when we put it into practice, and a staggering 95% when we teach that knowledge to others. Glasser's learning pyramid gives us a clear view of how we absorb and retain information. So, how exactly is this learning pyramid structured? Imagine a pyramid divided horizontally into several layers. At the very top, the smallest layer is reading. According to Glasser, this form of learning only accounts for about 10% of what we retain. It's a passive form of learning, relying mostly on absorbing information visually. The next level down is hearing, where we learn about 20% of what we're exposed to. This could be through a lecture or a podcast, for instance. It's a little more interactive than reading, as it often involves live delivery and allows for some degree of engagement. Then we have observing, which takes up the next layer. This accounts for 30% of what we learn. It's more immersive than simply reading or hearing, as it involves actively watching something happen, such as a demonstration or a process. When we combine observing and listening simultaneously, our learning absorption goes up to 50%. This is often the case in workshops or interactive presentations, where we can see and hear the information at the same time. Now, we're reaching the base of the pyramid, where learning becomes more interactive and engaging. Discussing the subject with others accounts for about 70% of our learning. This can happen in study groups, debates, or even casual conversations. Here, we're not just absorbing information, but also processing it, questioning it, and putting it into our own words. Next comes practicing what we've learned, which accounts for about 80% of our learning. This could be through exercises, experiments, or real-world applications. It's where we get our hands dirty and really test our understanding. Finally, at the very bottom of the pyramid, the largest layer is teaching others. This is where we learn a whopping 95% of the material. When we teach, we have to understand the subject well enough to explain it to others in a way that they can understand. It's a powerful form of learning that really cements the information in our minds. As we move down the pyramid, learning becomes more engaging and effective. Now that we understand the structure of the learning pyramid, what does it really imply about our learning process? In essence, the learning pyramid speaks volumes about our approach to learning and how we retain information. It underscores the importance of active involvement in the learning process. This active involvement isn't just about being present or listening, it's about engaging, discussing, practicing, and even teaching. Let's delve deeper. The pyramid suggests that passive learning methods, such as reading or listening to lectures, though essential, only account for a minor portion of our learning retention. We retain just 10% of what we read and 20% of what we hear. While these methods lay the foundation of our knowledge, they aren't the most effective for long-term retention. This is where active learning comes into play. When we observe and listen simultaneously, our retention jumps to 50%. This emphasizes the importance of a multisensory approach to learning, where we engage multiple senses at once. It's not just about hearing or seeing, it's about doing both together. But the pyramid doesn't stop there. It goes on to suggest that our learning retention significantly increases when we discuss the subject with others. This interaction allows us to question, clarify, and solidify our understanding, leading to a whopping 70% retention. Even more impressively, our learning retention skyrockets to 80% when we put what we've learned into practice. This learning by doing approach reinforces our understanding and helps us to apply the knowledge in a practical context. At the very top of the pyramid, we find the pinnacle of learning retention. Remarkably, we retain 95% of what we learn when we teach it to others. This is because teaching requires a deep understanding of the subject, which in turn reinforces our learning. So what does the learning pyramid imply? It suggests that active involvement in learning, through discussions, practice, and teaching, leads to better retention of information. It pushes us to not just be passive consumers of knowledge, but active participants in our own learning journey. In essence, the more we engage with the material, the more we learn. With this understanding of the learning pyramid, how can we apply it to our learning strategies? Let's dive into some practical applications of this fascinating concept. At the core of the learning pyramid is active participation. If you're a student, don't just read your books and listen to lectures. Instead, engage with the content. Discuss it with your peers, your teachers, or even your family. This dialogue can help you retain up to 70% of what you learn. But don't stop there. The next step up the pyramid is practice. Practice using the information you've learned. This might mean doing exercises in a math textbook, writing essays on historical events, or conducting experiments based on scientific principles. When you put your knowledge into action, you're not just understanding it, you're living it. And Glasser's research shows that this can help you retain up to 80% of what you learn. At the pinnacle of the learning pyramid is teaching others. This might seem intimidating, but it doesn't need to be. You don't have to stand in front of a classroom full of students. You can teach a friend, a sibling, or even just your pet. The important thing is to explain the concepts in your own words. This forces you to really understand the material, and according to the learning pyramid, this can help you retain a whopping 95% of what you learn. But remember, the learning pyramid isn't a strict formula. It's a guide, a roadmap to more effective learning. You don't have to follow it exactly. The important thing is to be active in your learning. Don't just be a passive recipient of information. Engage with it, discuss it, practice it, teach it. Make your learning a dynamic process, not a static one. Remember, effective learning isn't about passively taking in information, but actively engaging with it. So go forth and learn, not just by reading and listening, but by discussing, practicing, and teaching.